For a very long time, mother brought up her child, however, he ends up being a ghost. As the film starts, we see Chen Chia-Hao lying harmed in the road. Hao is a youthful, hopeful cop appointed to traffic obligation who has outstanding mental and actual strength. Notwithstanding, he is tormented by an uncanny capacity to see what others can't, apparitions of the dead. Subsequently, notwithstanding his wonderful abilities, he has simply ascended to the level of a traffic cop. As Hao thinks back about his past, we find that he has had this capacity since youth, which made him be distanced and ridiculed by different kids. Following this, we are returned to the occurrence that brought about Hao's physical issue. One evening, while on routine watch, Hao's accomplice noticed his exceptional ways of behaving that cause him problems, for example, Hao just sending off himself very high before vehicles. According to Hao's point of view, he is making a plunge front of running vehicles to save jaywalker spirits, be that as it may, to a typical individual. Maybe he is purposely inciting a crash. As the two keep examining, a vehicle races straight past them, be that as it may, Hao figures out how to stop it. He questions the driver for some time and cautions him to take it slow the following time. In any case, as Hao gets ready to let him go, he spots hints of blood on the vehicle's trunk. Hao opens it to examine it all the more intently, yet all he uncovers is a pink handbag. All of a sudden, the driver hammers him with a weighty item in the head, thumping him to the ground. He additionally shoots Hao's accomplice in the heart, killing him right away. The man then, at that point, gets ready to polish off Hao, and yet, a female phantom departures from the storage compartment and emerges before him. This offers Hao the chance to draw out his weapon and shoot the attacker, all things considered. The next day, Hao makes sense of for his seniors that a female phantom interceded for his sake, also saved him, yet true to form, nobody trusts him. Likewise, he is approached to amend his report by passing on out all reference to the phantom. Maddened that nobody is accepting his story, Hao leaves the place of employment, all things considered. Soon after, criminal investigator Chang, who seems, by all accounts, to be the main one to grasp his perspective, approaches him. Hao is then proposed to be enlisted for his mystery police wrongdoing agency. Then, Chang scouts him to the 9th region, a unique yet secret pseudo-fragment of the police organization that arrangements with strange inexplicable cases, especially those including phantoms, and assists them with discovering a sense of reconciliation to allow them to pass on. When Hao enters the division, he sees other cops that are cooperating with apparitions and have similar capacities as himself. Chang then clears up for him that when an individual kicks the bucket and turns into a phantom, they feel confounded. He adds that they're held among the living until their natural complaints are settled and they're served to appropriately disregard to the opposite side. Hao concedes that he can see the apparitions, however not hear them, so the investigator basically encourages him to sympathize with his heart until he acquires the capacity to hear them. Then, at that point, Chang briefs him on the main weapons utilized in a heavenly examination. The main thing he specifies is incense, which is a medium to assist with imparting our considerations and empower cooperations with the dead. Next is an extraordinary yin-yang umbrella that safeguards the phantoms and, ultimately, a sacrosanct water gun to protect oneself and obliterate vindictive and wrathful spirits. Following this, Hao is acquainted with Shay, an extreme and otherworldly criminal investigator who is by all accounts, acting rather strangely. Chang uncovers that she is being moved by the expert, a soul that suddenly has her and gives supportive direction to tackle their cases. Be that as it may, the expert must be controlled through the unreasonable utilization of liquor. Unusually, as before long as the Had Shay draws nearer to Hao, the expert distinguishes a lady's soul following him. Soon thereafter, Chang and Hao head out on a situation where a lady reports her home being spooky, with unusual commotions and spooky nebulous visions of a kid. As they start their examination, the criminal investigator requests that Hao utilize the yin-yang umbrella, and quickly after opening it, a phantom of a youngster shows up before him. Then, at that point, the investigator does some examination and understands that the youngster's folks didn't have the custom done appropriately after his demise, which caught his spirit there. He adds that a youngster, whether human or a phantom, yearns for their mom's glow and warmth and for somebody to play with. At last, he wraps up the case by uncovering that the hauntings in the house were really the youngster, attempting to play with the lady living there, not understanding that he's dead. Concerning the arrangement, the kid will be appropriately covered the following morning, giving him the harmony he generally merited. Then, they return to the area, and Hal thinks that the lady's soul, whom the expert said was following him, is the person who had really saved his life. Be that as it may, Chang stringently cautions him to just police the apparitions and not engage with the cases, including people. Notwithstanding the admonition, Hao meets the lady's soul, named Huang Yahweh, who drives him to the house she used to reside in. In any case, only minutes subsequent to entering, Hao gets taken out by her companion, Zhu Xin, who believes he's a gatecrasher. Fortunately, Yahui's soul assists him with highlighting her journal and make Zhu Xin accept that he can see her and is there to help. Finally, Zhu Xin uncovers that her companion, Yahweh, has been absent for more than a month. The following day, Chang and Hao head out on a situation where an elderly person reports unidentified cries, what's more, furniture developments in his home. In any case, after a touch of examination, shockingly, it is uncovered that he's really a soul who hasn't understood that he's now dead. At the point when the elderly person at last learns of this, he assists the analysts with finding signs in regards to his pain that has him caught in the natural domain. Following the signs, Hao finds a case, which contains a photograph of the elderly person, with his girl. This suggests that finding his little girl will assist him with giving to the opposite side. In the interim, Shay gets had and has a dream of where his girl is. Thus, them three drive to the said area, just to track down a horde of female phantoms, all enhancing a similar robe and gazing at them with pity and a hint of trust. Hao then, at that point, cautiously advances toward the elderly person's girl, reunites both of them, and liberates them. That very night, they illuminate other police divisions about this, which helps them uncover a mass grave of bodies, all recognized similar to those of the ones who had been detailed missing for the beyond couple of months. Prior to leaving, Hao sees Yahweh among the group. Also, because of his solid feeling of equity, he attempts to tackle her case. In any case, Chang cautions him not to interfere in that frame of mind as it might prompt shocking outcomes. Then, we are acquainted with Sun Yu Shu, chief at Sun General Clinic, who's simply been educated that a well-off counselor has met with a mishap. In this way, without burning through any time, she withdraws to protect him. In the following scene, Yu Shu is seen remaining before a sculpture of Satan, bearing a reversed cross in a dull robe. She then, at that point, gradually continues to direct a custom of resurrection on the departed counselor. In the meantime, Zhu Xin and Hao truly do some digging and discover that Yahweh was pregnant with the counselor's kid and had been to the Sun General Medical Clinic for her conveyance. This is, at the point when she totally vanished. Shockingly, the other casualties likewise stayed away forever, after their visit to a similar emergency clinic. This makes sense of why they were wearing similar outfits. The following day, they visit Yu Shu and examine her about the vanishings. Be that as it may, true to form, she pretends obliviousness. Thus, Zhu Xin payoffs the watchman and accesses the CCTV film. Amazingly, the recording uncovers that the counselor is remaining on the 2 feet, with next to no scars, regardless of having been in a mishap a couple of days prior. In another video, it is shown that Yahweh did as a matter of fact visit the clinic, however she never figured out how to get out. Somewhere else Yu Shu gets enraged over the two attempting to cross her, so she summons an detestable soul and sends him to hurt them. Meanwhile, the two return to Zhu Xin's home. Also, right when Hao is separated from everyone else in the washroom, the detestable soul appears. They participate in a furious fight with both going this way and that for some time. Eventually, the soul surrenders and leaves, understanding that he can't rival a region cop. Simultaneously, Chang shows up at the scene, and it is uncovered that Zhu Xin is his little girl. Be that as it may, they are not embracing a positive outlook, so she indignantly requests that he get out, advance notice him to avoid her business. Det. Chang obliges, however sooner or later, he again calls her to attempt to accommodate with her. They, at last appear to be getting along, however all at once, Yu Shu's men break into her home and steal her. Hearing his little girl's shouts, Det. Chang hurries to her place, just to think that it is abandoned. He in all actuality does anyway find the CCTV film that she was watching prior to being removed. As the analyst looks carefully, he sees Yu Shu in the casing, amazingly developing horns somewhere far away from me. Understanding that she is the culprit, Det. Chang surges over to the emergency clinic. There, he meets Yu Shu and attempts to convince her into giving his little girl back in return for the proof, yet she declines. Then, at that point, with a merciless smile, she shouts that Zhu Xin's penance is a need for other significant lives. At long last, it is uncovered that Yu Shu has extraordinary abilities, as she is allied with Satan. She really denies her young casualties of their life force, what's more, either assimilates it herself or feeds it to her well-off clients, leaving them young until the end of time. Hearing this, the incensed investigator draws out his firearm, however before he can pull the trigger, Yu Shu shows him his girl. Det. Chang is sickened as he sees his girl lying oblivious in a custom encompassed by candles. Then, at that point, with a tad of her hand, Yu Shu gags him and takes steps to polish him off. Soon thereafter, a few news channels report that the criminal investigator has carried out the unimaginable to end his anguish. Shockingly, the news likewise expresses that he had been going to the medical clinic for a long while to fix his downturn. This is on the grounds that the cleverness Yu Shu has manufactured a papers to make maybe he did the demonstration himself. The whole area is crushed to hear the news. Specifically, Shay is profoundly impacted by Det. Chang's demise as he had forever been a mentor to her. Hao isn't making some simple memories either, as the two had quite recently started to develop close as accomplices. He then gets in his vehicle and delicately cries, holding the level paper dolls that Zhu Xin had made in her life as a youngster. It is uncovered that analyst Chang prized these more than whatever else. In the following scene, Shay approaches Hao and starts discussing her grievous adolescence. She starts by uncovering that she had two dads. One of them was a mariner who suffocated in the ocean. Then, at the point when she was 3, her other dad took on her. Obviously, he used to become inebriated and brutally beat her consistently as a general rule. Then one evening, having had enough of the maltreatment, she took off from home, and continued to run until she imploded. She was then brought to a sanctuary, where she resided for a long time. With tears in her eyes, Shay then uncovers that it was criminal investigator Chang who saw as her and took her to that sanctuary. Following this, Hao likewise discusses his experience growing up. He starts by uncovering that a seer anticipated that his dad would wed 2 spouses. Along these lines, his dad wound up wedding a phantom lady to satisfy the prescience, in spite of the fact that his goals stay muddled. Notwithstanding, no one but Hao could see his phantom mother who was consistently there with him regardless of where he went. However, when his companions got to be aware of this, they began harassing him gravely. Tired of this, Hao started overlooking his mother and took off from her. Since that day, he could neither see nor hear his phantom mother. After the close-to-home stories, they choose to search for Zhu Xin and salvage her. For this, they kidnap one of Yu Shu's nearest representatives and play Russian roulette with him. When the man has chance in his shoulder, he at last spills Yu Shu's all's mysteries, counting the way that she must be crushed by the hallowed water. Thus, Hao and Shay race to the emergency clinic, outfitted with just the sacrosanct water pellet firearms. En route to the custom room, they battle hand-to-hand battle with watchmen and fire apparitions with the weapons. Similarly, as Hao goes into the room, he sees Yu Shu imploring Satan and putting Zhu Xin as the contribution. He quickly fires at her. Be that as it may, the projectiles don't appear to work. Understanding that he can't overcome her, Hao returns to design. He claims to give up by dropping his weapon, yet when he gets close to Yu Shu, he spits out the sacrosanct water on her reversed cross. This fixes every last bit of her spells and leaves her frail. Hao then, at that point, removes Zhu Xin from the water, and analyst Chang, who has come in the type of a soul, delicately shouts to her. Following a couple of moments, she at last awakens, what's more, quickly searches for her dad, just to discover that he has proactively died. A couple of days after the fact, Zhu Xin holds a memorial service for criminal investigator Chang. Furthermore, the whole 9th area goes to it, including the phantoms. In the meantime, Hao returns home after the memorial service lastly sees his phantom mother in the downpour. He strolls down to her and holds her under the umbrella. This at last provides her the sense of finality that she had been frantic for since years. The film closes as Hao affectionately views at his mom as she gradually disappears.